Translate this, and I'll give you $1,000,000, the millionaire laughed. The executives roared with laughter, but when the little girl opened her mouth, the smiles froze on their faces. The Ferguson Tower loomed over the city like a monument to power, 60 floors of glass and steel reflecting the clouds, built with the sweat of thousands of workers who would never set foot in its executive offices. On the top floor, where the air felt more exclusive and the carpets cost more than entire houses, a scene was unfolding that would change destinies forever. Lucy Miller's hands were icy cold, not from the air conditioning that kept the boardroom at a perfect temperature, but from the terror that coursed through every vein in her body. She stood in the middle of a room full of people who looked at her as if she were a smudge on their designer shoes. Her mother, Rhonda, had brought her that day because there was no one to look after her. It was a school holiday, and the options were to bring her to work or leave her alone in the small flat they shared. Rhonda had chosen what she believed was safer. How wrong she was. And what's this? Malcolm Ferguson's voice cut through the silence like a rusty knife. The CEO of Ferguson International Holdings was a man who had built his empire on the backs of others. His suit cost what Rhonda earned in a year, his watch what she'd earn in 5. But the most expensive thing he owned was his contempt for anyone he considered inferior. And for Malcolm Ferguson, almost everyone was inferior. Mr. Ferguson, I apologize. Rhonda stepped forward, her voice trembling. My daughter had nowhere to stay today. She'll be quiet in the staff room. She won't bother anyone, I promise. The staff room. Ferguson arched an eyebrow, looking Lucy up and down with a barely disguised sneer of disgust. Your daughter? You brought her to my company, as if this were a daycare center. The executives around the table began to murmur. Simon Reed, the corporate lawyer and Ferguson's right-hand man, smirked with that look of satisfaction only cowards show when someone more powerful humiliates the weak. Sir, Rhonda began. Silence. Ferguson raised a hand. His eyes never left Lucy. Come closer, girl. Lucy looked at her mother. She saw the fear in her eyes, the silent plea to obey without causing trouble. Rhonda had worked at that company for years. She cleaned the floors others dirtied, tidied the offices others messed up. She endured humiliations others would never imagine, all to give her daughter a better life. With slow steps, Lucy walked towards the center of the room. The glass walls showed the city below, small and insignificant. The boardroom table gleamed under the lights, so polished that Lucy could see her own reflection. A girl in a school uniform, blue backpack hanging from one shoulder, completely out of place in that temple of corporate power. What's your name? Ferguson asked, leaning forward in his leather chair. Lucy, sir. Lucy, he repeated, savoring the name as if it were something bitter. Tell me, Lucy, what does your mother do here? The question was a trap. Lucy knew it. Any answer would be used as a weapon. She works, sir, she replied softly. Works. Ferguson gave a short laugh. You call cleaning the toilets we use work? Picking up the rubbish we generate? Some executives chuckled, others looked away, uncomfortable, but without the courage to intervene. It's honest work, sir, Lucy said, and something in her voice made the laughter stop. Ferguson narrowed his eyes. He wasn't used to being talked back to, especially not by a child, the daughter of his cleaner. Honest work? He stood up, his imposing height casting a shadow over Lucy. Your mother earns in a month what I spend on one dinner, and you come here to lecture me about honesty. Malcolm, a female voice intervened from the other side of the table. It was Eleanor Dubois, the French investor who had come to negotiate a multi-million-dollar deal. Perhaps we should continue with the meeting. The documents can wait. Ferguson didn't take his eyes off Lucy. He had found new entertainment. Tell me, studious girl, how smart are you? Do you get good grades at your little local school? Lucy didn't reply. She kept her gaze down, as her mother had taught her. Don't cause trouble. Don't draw attention. Survive. I asked you a question. Ferguson's voice hardened. Yes, sir. I get good grades. In what subjects? All of them, sir. Another laugh rippled through the room. Simon Reed leaned forward, his eyes gleaming with malice. All of them? Even languages? The lawyer asked. Yes, sir. And what languages do you speak, little genius? Ferguson crossed his arms, his smile widening. Lucy hesitated. She knew anything she said would be mocked, but she also knew lying was worse. Her mother had taught her that too. The truth, even if it hurts, is always better than a lie. Spanish, English, French, German, and Arabic, sir. The silence that followed was absolute. And then Malcolm Ferguson did something no one expected. He threw his head back and let out a booming laugh that made the windows vibrate. A laugh that contained all his contempt, all his disbelief, all his disdain for this child who dared to claim something so absurd. 5 languages, he exclaimed between laughs. The cleaner's daughter speaks 5 languages. The executives joined the laughter. It was easier to laugh with the boss than to remain silent. It was safer to be an accomplice than to be neutral. Rhonda wanted to run to her daughter, but her feet were nailed to the floor. Tears threatened to fall, but she held them back. She couldn't show weakness. Not here, not now. Mr. Ferguson. Eleanor Dubois spoke again, this time with a firmer tone. I think this has gone far enough. But Ferguson wasn't finished. He had an idea that seemed brilliant in its cruelty. He walked to the table and picked up a stack of documents. They were the contracts for the international negotiation to take place that afternoon. Documents in 5 different languages prepared by professional translators who charged fortunes for their work. All right, little polyglot. Ferguson approached Lucy, waving the papers in front of her face. I'll make you a deal. Malcolm, Eleanor began. Silence, he ordered without looking at her. His eyes were fixed on Lucy like a predator watching its prey. I'll give you $1 million if you translate this. The room was in commotion. $1 million to a child. Simon Reed smiled broadly. He perfectly understood what his boss was doing. It was a perfect humiliation. The girl wouldn't be able to translate anything. She would be ridiculed, and her mother would learn the lesson of never bringing problems to the office again. Here are documents in English, French, German, Arabic, and Japanese. Ferguson continued. If you can read them and translate them correctly, I'll give you the money. $1 million right now. In front of everyone. That's unfair. Rhonda finally found her voice. She's just a child. A child who claims to speak 5 languages. Ferguson didn't even look at her. Isn't that right, Lucy? Or were you lying? Lucy looked up for the first time since entering the room. Her eyes met Ferguson's. In them there was no fear, no shame. There was something the CEO hadn't seen in a long time. There was fire. I wasn't lying, sir, Lucy said, her voice clear and firm. But you mentioned Japanese. I said I spoke Arabic, not Japanese. Ferguson's smile wavered for a second. Then I suppose you lose by default. What a shame, but I can try anyway. Lucy extended her hand. Give me the documents. A murmur went through the room. No one expected that. Everyone expected tears, apologies, complete humiliation. Not a girl extending her hand with the same authority as an executive closing a deal. Ferguson hesitated. For the first time in the conversation, he seemed unsure how to proceed, but his pride was greater than his prudence. As you wish. He handed her the documents with a dismissive smile. You have 5 minutes. Lucy took the papers, her hands no longer trembling. Something had changed in her, or perhaps something that had always been there, had finally awakened. She looked at the first document. It was in English. It was an investment contract with complex clauses about equity percentages and financial guarantees. She began to read aloud. At first, no one paid true attention. They expected her to babble, to get confused, to prove the farce everyone believed it to be. But then the words began to flow. Lucy didn't just read. She translated simultaneously into English, explaining the meaning of each clause with a precision that made Eleanor Dubois lean forward in her seat. Wait. The French investor interrupted. What did you say about the termination clause, Lucy? Lucy repeated the translation, adding legal context that even the lawyers present hadn't considered. The second document was in French. Lucy took it and, looking directly at Eleanor, began to read in perfect Parisian French. Eleanor Dubois, ballad. Her pronunciation, she murmured, in her native language, it's impeccable. Lucy smiled slightly and continued with the translation into English. The third document was in German. It was a technical report on international bank transfers. Lucy read it with the same fluency, her accent so perfect that Klaus Becker, the German banker present as a consultant, took off his glasses to look at her better. Where did you learn German? He asked in his language. My neighbor was German, sir, Lucy replied. Also in German. She taught me since I was very little. She said that words are bridges between worlds. The fourth document was in Arabic. It was a letter of intent from Amir al-Hamad, the businessman who would negotiate via video conference that afternoon. Lucy took the paper and began to read the Arabic characters from right to left, her voice adopting the particular cadence of that ancient language. Amir al-Hamad, who was connected by video conference to observe the preliminary meeting, stood up from his seat in his office thousands of kilometers away. Who is this child? He asked in Arabic. The cleaner's daughter, Lucy replied in the same language without taking her eyes off the document. And your letter is very well written, Mr. Al-Hamad, especially the paragraph about the importance of trust in business. The room was in complete silence. Malcolm Ferguson had stopped smiling. His face had transformed into a mask of disbelief that slowly turned into something more dangerous: humiliation. Only one document remained, the one in Japanese, the language Lucy had admitted not knowing. Ferguson saw his opportunity. "The last one," he said, regaining some of his composure. "Japanese. You said you don't speak it. I suppose your little show ends there." Lucy looked at the document. The Japanese characters looked back at her like an impossible riddle. She felt the weight of all eyes on her. She felt her mother's hope. She felt Ferguson's contempt. She felt the amazement of the international investors. And then she did something no one expected. She walked over to where Yumi Sato, the Japanese executive, was sitting. She bowed respectfully, as she had seen done in educational videos, and spoke. "Miss Sato, I don't speak Japanese, but I've studied your country's culture for years. I know that in Japan, admitting what you don't know is as important as demonstrating what you do know. I humbly ask you to teach me how to read this document. Not today, but someday." The silence that followed was different from all the previous ones. Yumi Sato slowly stood up. Her eyes shone with something that could have been admiration, or perhaps something deeper. "In Japan," she said in English with a soft accent, "we have a word, gambaru. It means to strive your best, never give up, give your all, even if the outcome is uncertain." She looked at Ferguson with an expression that made the CEO take a step back. "This child has just demonstrated more gambaru than any executive I've met in 20 years of business." Eleanor Dubois stood up too. "I completely agree. What I've just witnessed is extraordinary." Klaus Becker nodded. "I've never seen anything like it." Amir Al-Hamad from the screen spoke in English with a grave voice. "Mr. Ferguson, you promised $1 million. The child translated 4 out of 5 documents perfectly. I'd say she more than fulfilled her part." Ferguson looked around. The allies he expected to have had turned against him. The humiliation he had planned for a child now fell upon his own shoulders. "This is ridiculous." His voice trembled with contained fury. "It was a joke. Obviously, I'm not going to give $1 million to a brat." "A joke?" Eleanor Dubois repeated slowly. "Humiliating a child in front of international investors seems funny to you, Mr. Ferguson? This is my company." Ferguson slammed the table. "I decide what's funny and what's not." Simon Reed tried to intervene. "Perhaps we should take a break." "No one asked for your opinion," Ferguson yelled at his own lawyer. Lucy remained standing in the center of the room, holding the documents against her chest. She looked at her mother, who was crying silently near the door. Tears of pride mixed with fear for what would come next. Because both knew the truth. Ferguson would not forgive this humiliation, no matter what the investors thought, no matter what was right or fair. Revenge would come. It was only a matter of time. But at that moment, as the afternoon sun streamed through the windows and bathed the room in golden light, Lucy Miller had achieved something no one believed possible. She had made a giant tremble. And that, though she didn't know it yet, was only the beginning. Because somewhere in that glass and steel tower, someone else had been watching. Someone who knew secrets that would change everything. And that someone had just found exactly what they had been looking for years. The consequences came faster than Rhonda had feared. That same night, as mother and daughter walked towards their small flat on the outskirts of the city, Rhonda's phone rang. The number was from the company. Her heart stopped before she answered. "Miss Miller." The voice on the other end was cold, professional. "Human resources here. You are being informed that your services will no longer be required at Ferguson International Holdings. You can come tomorrow to collect your severance pay." The call cut off before Rhonda could respond. Lucy watched as her mother's face crumbled, as tears began to fall, as her shoulders slumped under an invisible but crushing weight. "Mum." Lucy reached out. "Don't say anything," Rhonda whispered. "Please, not now." They walked the rest of the way in silence. A silence that weighed more than any words. Lucy felt the knot in her throat growing with every step. She had caused this. Her moment of bravery had destroyed her family's only source of income. The flat greeted them with its usual darkness. Rhonda didn't turn on the lights. She sat in the only dining chair and dropped her head into her hands. 15 years, she murmured. 15 years working there, putting up with everything. And in one day, it's all over. "Mum, I didn't mean to." "I know you didn't mean to." Rhonda raised her voice for the first time. Her eyes gleamed with tears and something else. Something Lucy had never seen in her. Desperation. "But now we have nothing, Lucy, do you understand? Nothing. The rent is due in 2 weeks. I have no savings. No other job waiting for me. What are we going to do?" Lucy had no answer. She stood in the middle of the small living room, feeling every word from her mother stab into her chest like icy needles. "I should have kept quiet," she finally said. "I should have let him mock me." And then, Rhonda took a deep breath, trying to regain her composure. "No, darling, what you did was brave. It was incredible. But in this world, the brave don't always win. Sometimes the powerful simply crush those who dare to challenge them." "That's not fair." "No, it's not." The silence returned, heavier than before. Lucy approached her mother and hugged her. Rhonda sobbed against her daughter's shoulder, letting out all the fear and frustration she had held back for hours, for years, if she was honest. "We'll find a solution," Lucy whispered. "I don't know how, but we will. I promise you." Rhonda didn't answer, she just kept crying. The following days were the hardest Lucy remembered. Rhonda left every morning before dawn looking for work anywhere that would take her. Restaurants, shops, cleaning offices. But every door closed with the same answer: no vacancies. What Rhonda didn't know was that Malcolm Ferguson had made calls. He had used his influence to ensure that no company in the city would hire the woman who had raised the child who humiliated him. It was his form of revenge, silent, effective, ruthless. Lucy continued to attend school, but her mind was elsewhere. She looked out the window during classes, thinking of her mother walking under the sun, knocking on doors that never opened. "Lucy Miller, are you paying attention?" The teacher's voice snapped her out of her thoughts. All eyes in the class were on her. "Yes, teacher, sorry." "Then, can you tell me the answer to the question I just asked?" Lucy had no idea what the question was, but her mind worked fast. She looked at the blackboard, saw the numbers of the mathematical equation, and in seconds calculated the answer: 42. "Teacher." The teacher blinked in surprise. "Correct. But try to be more present in class, Miss Miller." Lucy nodded, but her mind had already begun to wander again. She needed to find a way to help her mother. She needed to fix what she had caused. A week after the dismissal, the situation was critical. The fridge was almost empty, bills piled up unpaid, and Rhonda had started to cough, a deep, worrying sound that worsened every night. "It's just a cold," she'd say when Lucy asked. "Don't worry." But Lucy did worry. She could see her mother weakening, dark circles growing, how each day that passed without work stole a little more hope from her. It was then that Lucy made a decision. She waited for her mother to fall asleep and turned on their old computer. The internet connection was slow, but it worked. She started looking for online translation jobs, services where people paid for document translations. She had no certificates, no credentials, nothing, but her languages and her determination. She created an account with a false name. She couldn't use her own. She was a minor, and the rules didn't allow her to work. But rules didn't feed her mother. Rules didn't pay the rent. Her first job was small, translating a restaurant menu from Spanish to English. It paid mere cents, but Lucy did it with the same dedication she had shown in Ferguson's boardroom. When the client left a positive review, something changed. Other clients began to contact her. Legal documents, business letters, important emails. Each job was more complex than the last, but Lucy didn't stop. She worked until dawn when her mother slept. She woke up early to go to school. She slept only a few hours, but every cent she earned went directly into an account she had managed to open with borrowed documents from an older neighbor who owed her mother favors. Weeks passed. Rhonda noticed changes she couldn't explain. The fridge had food, bills appeared paid, but when she asked, Lucy just said she'd found coins in the street or that a neighbor had given them groceries. "Lucy," Rhonda confronted her one night. "I need you to tell me the truth. Where's the money coming from?" Lucy hesitated. She hated lying to her mother, but she also knew that if she told her the truth, Rhonda would forbid her to continue. And then what would they eat? "I'm doing small jobs," she finally said, "helping classmates with homework. Nothing bad, Mom, I promise." Rhonda looked at her for a long moment. Her mother's eyes knew there was more, but they also knew her daughter was trying to help in the only way she knew how. "Promise me you're not doing anything dangerous." "I promise." It was a half promise. Working to exhaustion was dangerous. Falsifying her age to work was illegal. But Lucy convinced herself it was necessary, that the end justified the means. How wrong she was. The call came a month after the dismissal. Lucy was in class when the principal entered the room with a grave expression. "Lucy Miller, I need you to come with me." Murmurs filled the classroom as Lucy stood up. She walked behind the principal down hallways that suddenly seemed longer, more threatening. In the principal's office, two people waited, a man and a woman, both with professional expressions that revealed nothing. "Lucy!" "These are from Child Protection Services," the principal explained. "They have some questions for you." "No!" Lucy's heart sank. "Miss Miller," the man spoke in a neutral voice, "we've received an anonymous report about your family situation. It claims you are working illegally and that your mother has no employment or means to support you." "That's not," Lucy began. "We also received documentation suggesting you've been using false identities to operate on online work platforms," the woman added. "Is that true?" Lucy felt the world closing in around her. Someone had reported her. Someone who knew exactly what she was doing. It had to be Ferguson. His revenge hadn't ended with her mother's dismissal. He had waited, he had watched, and now he was striking where it hurt most. "We need to speak with your mother," the man continued. "And depending on what we find, we may need to consider alternative custody options." "Alternative custody?" Lucy felt the air leave her lungs. "You want to take me away from my mom?" "No one wants that," the woman said, but her voice didn't sound convincing. "We just want to make sure you're in a safe environment. My mother is the safest person in the world." Lucy felt tears threatening to fall, but she held them back with all her willpower. "She has sacrificed everything for me, everything. And if I made mistakes, it was to help her, not because she forced me." "We understand it's a difficult situation," the man said, "but we have procedures to follow." Rhonda arrived at the school 30 minutes later. When she entered the office and saw the officials, her face went pale. When she heard the accusations, her eyes filled with tears. When she understood they could take her daughter away, something in her broke. "Please," she pleaded, her voice cracking. "My daughter was just trying to help me. It's my fault. All my fault. Punish me, not her." "Miss Miller, we're not here to punish anyone," the woman said. "We're here to assess the situation. The situation is that I lost my job unfairly." Rhonda raised her voice for the first time. "I was fired because my daughter proved to be smarter than the most powerful man in that company, and since then that man has made sure to destroy our lives. He's the one who should be investigated, not us. Madame, we understand you're upset. You don't understand anything." Rhonda was sobbing now. "You don't understand what it's like to walk the streets looking for work while your daughter goes hungry. You don't understand what it's like to see your child stay up until dawn trying to save us. You don't understand anything." Lucy approached her mother and hugged her. Both were crying now, clinging to each other, as if the world was trying to separate them. And in a way, it was. "We're going to need to visit your home," the man finally said. "And we want to interview Lucy separately. It's standard procedure." "You're not separating me from my daughter," Rhonda said, with a fierce determination that cut through her tears. "No one is talking about separation yet," the woman tried to calm the situation. "We're just… yet." Rhonda repeated the word, as if it were poison. "Did you hear that, Lucy? Yet. As if it's inevitable. As if they've already decided." "Mum," Lucy whispered. "Everything's going to be okay. We're going to show them we're a family, that we look after each other. They'll see the truth." "The truth," Rhonda murmured bitterly. "The truth is, the poor don't have truth. We only have the story the rich decide to tell about us." The separate interview was the longest hour of Lucy's life. They asked her questions about her mother, about their home, about their meals, about her dreams, about her fears. Every answer was analyzed, noted, judged. "Has your mother ever harmed you?" "Never. My mother is the gentlest person alive." "Do you feel safe at home?" "I feel safe because I'm with her." "Why did you start working online?" Lucy hesitated before answering. She knew the truth could make things worse, but she also knew that lying had brought her here. "Because my mother was getting sick from looking for work she couldn't find, because we had nothing to eat, because I was the only one who could do something, and languages are all I have." "Did you know it was illegal?" "I knew it was necessary." The official looked at her for a long moment. There was something in her eyes Lucy couldn't decipher. Compassion, judgment, both. "Lucy, do you know who made the anonymous report about your family?" "I think so." "Who?" "Malcolm Ferguson. The man who fired my mother. The man who promised to give me $1 million if I translated documents and then mocked me when I did." The official took note. "That's a serious accusation. It's the truth." When they were finally allowed to reunite, mother and daughter hugged as if they hadn't seen each other in years. "They're not going to separate us," Lucy whispered in her mother's ear. "I won't allow it." "My brave girl." Rhonda kissed her forehead. "My little warrior." But as they left the school, neither of them noticed the vehicle parked across the street, nor the man watching them with a satisfied smile. Simon Reed rolled down the window and dialed a number on his phone. Mr. Ferguson, everything went as planned. The authorities are now involved. It's only a matter of time before the girl ends up in the foster care system. Ferguson's voice sounded pleased on the other end of the line. Excellent. No one humiliates me and gets away with it. Absolutely no one. What about the mother? She's already destroyed, out of work, broke, and soon without a daughter. That's enough punishment for now. And if anyone finds out about our involvement, Ferguson chuckled softly. Who's going to believe a cleaner over the actions of one of the most powerful men in the country? No one. That's the privilege of power, Simon. We can do whatever we want. And the world just looks the other way. The call cut off. Simon started the engine and drove away, leaving behind a mother and daughter walking arm in arm towards an uncertain future. But what neither of them knew was that someone else had been listening to that conversation. Someone who had installed a listening device on Simon's phone months ago, waiting for exactly this moment. Someone who knew all of Malcolm Ferguson's secrets, and that someone had just decided it was time to act, because in the shadows of the Ferguson Tower, a storm was about to break, and when it came, nothing would ever be the same. Sir Arthur Monaghan had lived 73 years learning a fundamental truth. Real power isn't measured in shouts, but in silences. Sitting in his private office, in an unnamed building in the city center, he listened for the third time to the recording of the conversation between Simon Reed and Malcolm Ferguson. Every word confirmed what he had suspected for years. His nephew had become a monster. Because yes, Malcolm Ferguson was his nephew, the son of his younger sister, whom Arthur had raised as his own when she died of an illness the doctors could never explain. He had given him education, opportunities, contacts. He had taught him everything about business, and Malcolm had used every lesson to build an empire of cruelty. Sir Arthur, the voice of his assistant, a woman named Stella Carter, interrupted his thoughts. The investigations you requested are complete. Stella placed a thick folder on the desk. She was a middle-aged woman. Discreet. Efficient. She had worked for Arthur for decades and knew secrets that could bring down governments. What did you find about the girl? Arthur asked without looking up. Lucy Miller, outstanding student. Perfect grades at all levels. Speaks 5 languages with proven fluency. Her mother, Rhonda Miller, worked 15 years at Ferguson International Holdings until her unfair dismissal a month ago. And the anonymous report? We traced the origin. It was made from a burner phone, but the cell towers locate the call within the Ferguson Tower, specifically on the legal office's floor. Simon, Arthur murmured the name as if it were poison. There's more, Stella continued. The mother is ill. It started as a simple cough, but has worsened. Our contacts at the community hospital indicate she has visited the free clinic 3 times in the last 2 weeks. Doctor suspects severe bronchitis, possibly progressing to pneumonia. She needs medication she can't afford. Arthur closed his eyes. The image of Rhonda walking in the rain looking for work, getting sick while her daughter worked until dawn to keep them afloat, caused a pang of guilt. He had created the monster, destroying those lives. What about the Child Protection Services case? Hearing scheduled for 1 week from now. If the assessment determines the home is inadequate, Lucy will be removed from her mother's custody and placed in the system. And the assessors? That's the interesting part. Stella pulled out another document. One of the assigned officials, Robert Parker, has financial connections to subsidiary companies of Ferguson Holdings. He receives monthly payments categorized as consulting, but there's no evidence of any service rendered. A disguised bribe. Arthur nodded slowly. Malcolm bought the assessor. It appears so. The verdict is probably already decided. Arthur rose from his chair and walked to the window. From there, he could see the Ferguson Tower gleaming in the distance, a monument to the ego of a man without a conscience. For years, Arthur had watched from the shadows. He had founded Ferguson International Holdings decades ago, but had retired when his health began to fail, leaving everything in the hands of his nephew. It had been his biggest mistake. Malcolm had transformed the company, made it bigger, richer, more powerful, but he had also turned it into something corrupt. Bribes to officials, destruction of competitors, exploitation of workers, and now persecution of a mother and her daughter for the simple crime of having wounded his pride. Stella, Arthur spoke without turning around. I need you to do something for me. Whatever you command. I want to meet that girl, Lucy Miller. Lucy was walking home from school when she noticed someone following her. It wasn't obvious. Whoever it was knew how to keep their distance. But Lucy had developed sharp instincts in recent weeks. Living under constant threat does that to people. She quickened her pace. The follower also sped up. Her heart began to beat faster. It was someone sent by Ferguson. Another move in his cruel game. She thought about running, but her legs were trembling too much. "Lucy Miller," a female voice called her name. She turned abruptly. A middle-aged woman approached with her hands visible, showing she posed no threat. "Who are you?" Lucy took a step back. "My name is Stella Carter. I'm not here to harm you. I'm here to offer you help." "Help?" Lucy laughed bitterly. "The last person who offered help ended up reporting us to the authorities. I understand your distrust, but there's someone who wants to meet you. Someone who knows what Malcolm Ferguson has done to you and your mother. Someone who can truly help you." "Who?" "His name is Sir Arthur Monaghan. He was, the original owner of Ferguson International Holdings." Lucy blinked. "The original owner? But Ferguson." "Ferguson is his nephew. Arthur founded the company decades ago and handed it over when he retired. But he never imagined what Malcolm would turn it into. And why would he want to help us?" Stella looked at her with an expression that mixed sadness and determination. "Because he has spent years observing his nephew's cruelties without being able to do anything. Because he saw what Malcolm did to you in that boardroom and felt ashamed to share blood with that man. And because he believes that you, Lucy, have something he lost a long time ago." "What thing?" "The courage to stand up to the powerful." The meeting took place that same afternoon in a small cafe far from the city center. Lucy had insisted on a public place, and Arthur had agreed without objection. When she saw him enter, Lucy was surprised. She expected someone imposing, intimidating. Instead, she found an elderly man with a slow gait, tired but kind eyes, and a smile that seemed genuine. "Thank you for agreeing to see me." Arthur sat across from her with slow movements. "I know you have no reason to trust anyone connected to Ferguson." "I don't," Lucy confirmed. "But I also don't have many options." "Direct." "I like that." Arthur ordered 2 flat whites from the waiter before continuing. "Do you know who I am? Your assistant explained it to me. You founded the company. Ferguson is your nephew. More than that, I raised him. When my sister died, Malcolm was only 8 years old. I took him into my home, educated him, gave him everything I had. I thought I was raising a good man." "You were terribly mistaken," Arthur sighed. "Power reveals who we truly are. And Malcolm revealed something I didn't want to see. Cruelty, boundless ambition, contempt for anyone he considers inferior. Why didn't you do anything before?" The question hit Arthur like a slap. It was the same question he asked himself every night. "Cowardice," he admitted. "Shame, denial. I convinced myself they were rumors, exaggerations, that the boy I had raised couldn't be that bad. But when I saw you in that boardroom, when I saw how my nephew enjoyed humiliating a child in front of dozens of people, I knew I could no longer look the other way. You were there? I have access to all the company's security cameras. I never completely relinquished control. It was my last safeguard, though I never thought I'd have to use it." Lucy processed the information. "So you saw everything. Everything. I saw you translate those documents with a skill that professionals would take years to develop. I saw you stand up to a man who has destroyed careers with a snap of his fingers. I saw how, when the Japanese document came, you had the wisdom to admit what you didn't know and the humility to ask to be taught." His eyes moistened slightly. "I saw an extraordinary child being treated like dirt by a man who doesn't deserve to clean her shoes." The hot chocolates arrived. Lucy wrapped her hands around the cup, absorbing the warmth. "What do you want from me?" she finally asked. "I want to help you and your mother." "How?" Arthur took an envelope from his jacket. "Here's enough money to pay for your mother's medical treatment. I know she's ill. I know she needs medication you can't afford." Lucy looked at the envelope but didn't touch it. "And in return? Nothing. No one gives something for nothing." Arthur smiled with genuine admiration. "You're right. There's always a motive. Mine is redemption. I've spent years allowing my nephew to destroy lives while I silently counted my money. Helping you won't erase my sins, but perhaps I can prevent him from committing more. There's something else." Lucy looked him directly in the eyes. "You want more than to just feel better about yourself." Arthur remained silent for a long moment. Finally, he nodded. "I want to stop Malcolm, not just for what he did to you, but for everything he's done for years. The bribes, the manipulations, the lives he's ruined. But I can't do it alone. I need someone I can trust, someone who isn't for sale, someone Malcolm would never see coming." "Me?" Lucy almost laughed. "I'm a child. I have no power, no money, nothing. You have something more valuable than all of that. You have truth, your story, your talent, your courage. The world is already starting to hear about you. The investors who were in that meeting haven't stopped talking about the girl who humiliated Ferguson in his own boardroom. Talking? Eleanor Dubois, the French investor, cancelled all her negotiations with Ferguson Holdings. Amir Al-Hamad did the same. Klaus Becker is reconsidering his participation, and Yumi Sato published an article in a Japanese business magazine about the importance of recognizing talent regardless of its origin. Lucy felt something strange in her chest. Hope, pride. She wasn't sure. And what do you want me to do? For now, nothing. I just want you to accept my help, to let me pay for your mother's treatment, to let me protect you from what's coming. What's coming? Arthur's expression darkened. The Child Protection Services hearing. Malcolm bought one of the assessors. The outcome is predetermined. They're going to take you away from your mother. Lucy's world stopped. How do you know that? Because I have eyes everywhere, and because I know my nephew. He won't rest until he completely destroys you. Tears threatened to fall, but Lucy held them back. She wouldn't cry. Not here, not now. You can stop him? I can try, but I need time, and I need you to trust me. Lucy looked at the envelope on the table. She thought of her mother coughing every night, getting worse every day. She thought of the hearing approaching like an inevitable storm. She thought of all the doors that had closed, all the hopes that had died, and she thought of something her mother always told her. When you have nothing to lose, any outstretched hand is a bridge. She took the envelope. Okay, she said, I'll trust you, but if you betray me, if you hurt my mother in any way, I'll find a way to destroy you. I don't know how, but I will. Arthur looked at her with a mix of astonishment and respect. I know, and that's exactly why I believe in you. That night, when Lucy arrived home, she found her mother sitting in the dark, crying. Mom! She ran to her. What happened? Rhonda held up a crumpled paper. It was an official letter from Child Protection Services. They moved up the hearing. Her voice was barely a whisper. It's the day after tomorrow. They say they have enough evidence to determine our home is inadequate. Lucy felt the ground disappear beneath her feet. Arthur had said he needed time, but time had run out. Mum, listen to me. She took her mother's hands in hers. I met someone today. Someone who wants to help us. Someone who has the power to stand up to Ferguson. Who? The man who founded his company. His own uncle. Rhonda looked at her in disbelief. Ferguson's uncle? And you believe him? I don't know if I believe him, but we have to try. It's our only chance. Rhonda's cough interrupted the conversation. It was deep, painful, and this time it was accompanied by something that made Lucy's heart stop. Blood. On the tissue her mother used to cover her mouth were blood stains. Mom, it's nothing. Rhonda tried to hide the tissue. It's just, don't lie to me, Lucy cried, tears streaming down her cheeks. How long has this been happening? Rhonda didn't answer. She didn't need to. Her eyes said it all. We're going to the hospital now. We can't afford it. Lucy pulled out the envelope Arthur had given her. She opened it. Inside was more money than they had seen in years. Now we can. In the emergency room of the Royal Sydney Hospital, while the doctors examined Rhonda, Lucy made a call. Sir Arthur, it's Lucy. My mother is very ill. And they moved up the hearing. It's the day after tomorrow. Arthur's voice sounded tense on the other end. They're speeding everything up. Malcolm must suspect something. What do we do? There was a long pause. Then, Arthur spoke with renewed determination. Get ready, Lucy, because we're going to do something my nephew would never expect. What? We're going to tell the truth, the whole truth, in front of the whole world. The waiting room of the Royal Sydney Hospital smelled of disinfectant and desperation. Lucy had spent the entire night sitting in a plastic chair, watching the clock tick second by second, unable to sleep, unable to think of anything else but her mother behind those white doors. The doctors had confirmed the worst. Severe pneumonia. Rhonda needed immediate hospitalization, expensive medication, and above all, absolute rest. Weeks of walking in the rain, looking for work. Sleepless nights, worrying about her daughter, and the constant stress of living under threat had destroyed her immune system. She's strong, doctor. Sarah Davies had said, a woman with compassionate eyes who seemed genuinely concerned, but she needs to stay here for at least a week. If the infection reaches her lungs completely, we could be talking about something much more serious. A week. The hearing was in 2 days. Lucy felt like the universe was conspiring against them. Every time they found a small glimmer of hope, a new darkness appeared to extinguish it. Her phone vibrated. It was a message from Stella Carter. Sir Arthur needs to see you. It's urgent. Sending address. Lucy looked towards the room where her mother slept, connected to machines that monitored every heartbeat. She didn't want to leave her alone, but she also couldn't do nothing while her world crumbled. She asked a nurse to keep an eye on her mother and left the hospital. The address led her to an old building in a part of the city Lucy didn't know. There were no signs, no indications, just a dark wooden door that opened before she could knock. Stella was waiting inside. "Follow me," she said without further explanation. They went up narrow stairs until they reached an office that seemed to come from another era. Books covered the walls from floor to ceiling. Ancient maps hung in gilded frames. And in the center, seated behind a solid oak desk, Sir Arthur Monaghan reviewed documents with a grave expression, but he wasn't alone. Lucy stopped short when she recognized the other people in the room. Eleanor Dubois, the French investor, sat in a leather armchair, her legs elegantly crossed. Amir Al-Hamad, the Arab businessman, stood by the window, his expression serious but not hostile. And Yumi Sato, the Japanese executive, occupied a chair near the desk, her hands resting on a briefcase. "What's going on?" Lucy asked, her voice trembling slightly. "Sit down, Lucy." Arthur pointed to an empty chair. "There's a lot to explain, and little time." Lucy obeyed, even though every muscle in her body screamed at her to run away. Eleanor Dubois was the first to speak. Her English had an elegant accent but was perfectly understandable. "After what we witnessed in that boardroom, none of us could forget you. A child confronting a man like Ferguson, demonstrating skills that professionals would take decades to develop. It was extraordinary. But more than that," Amir Al-Hamad continued, his deep voice resonating in the room. "It was revealing. Ferguson showed his true nature that day, and that made us investigate his businesses more deeply." "Investigate?" Lucy looked at Arthur for an explanation. "The international investors have resources I don't have," Arthur explained. "When I contacted them a few days ago, they had already begun their own investigations into Ferguson Holdings. What they found is devastating." Yumi Sato opened her briefcase and pulled out a thick folder. Forged documents, manipulated contracts, bribes to officials in 6 different countries, labor exploitation in subsidiary factories, and something worse. She handed the folder to Lucy. "Your mother wasn't the first employee Ferguson destroyed for personal reasons. There's a pattern. Dozens of people over the years, workers who contradicted him, who refused to participate in his schemes, who simply rubbed him the wrong way. All ended up the same: fired, defamed, blocked from getting employment anywhere." Lucy leafed through the documents. Names, dates, testimonies, stories of destroyed families, ruined careers, shattered lives. Her mother was just the latest victim of a monster who had operated with impunity for years. "Why didn't anyone do anything before?" she asked, her voice cracking. "Because power protects power," Eleanor replied bitterly. "Ferguson has connections in government, in the media, in the judicial system. Anyone who tried to expose him was silenced before they could speak. But now there are many of us. And we have something Ferguson didn't expect," Amir added. "What? You?" Arthur leaned forward. "Your story has gone viral, Lucy. The video from the boardroom was leaked online 3 days ago." "What?" Lucy felt the air leave her lungs. "How?" "I leaked it," Arthur admitted, without remorse. "It was a calculated risk. I knew Ferguson would accelerate his revenge, but I also knew the world needed to see who my nephew really is." Stella turned on a screen on the wall. The video showed exactly what Lucy remembered. Ferguson, laughing at her. The $1 million challenge, her demonstration in 4 languages. The humility with the Japanese. But what was most shocking were the numbers below the video. 47 million views. "In 3 days, the whole world is talking about you," Eleanor said. "You're trending in 17 countries. Journalists from all over the planet want to interview you. And, most importantly, they're investigating Ferguson." Lucy couldn't process what she was seeing. Her moment of humiliation had turned into something completely different. People weren't mocking her. They admired her, defended her, demanded justice. The comments. Yumi pointed to the screen showing thousands of messages. "They're asking Ferguson to fulfill his promise. The $1 million. People say you deserve it. I don't want his money," Lucy said firmly. "I just want him to leave my family alone. And that's exactly what we're going to achieve." Arthur stood up. "But we need your help." "My help for what?" "For the press conference we've organized for tomorrow." The next few hours were a whirlwind of preparation. Arthur explained the plan. Tomorrow, hours before the Child Protection Services hearing, they would hold an international press conference. The investors would present evidence of Ferguson's corporate crimes. Arthur would reveal his identity as the company's founder and publicly denounce his nephew's actions. And Lucy would tell her story. Not just what happened in the boardroom, Arthur clarified. Everything. Your mother's unfair dismissal, the campaign to prevent her from getting work, the anonymous report, the bribed assessor. Everything. And you think it will work? Lucy asked, skeptically. Ferguson has power. He has lawyers. He has connections. But he doesn't have something we do, Amir replied with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. Documented truth. And 47 million witnesses who are already on your side. Eleanor approached Lucy and took her hands. I know you're scared. Anyone would be. But what you did in that boardroom showed you have more courage than men who have led nations. You're not alone in this. Yumi nodded. In Japan we say, Nana korobi yaoki. It means fall 7 times and get up 8. You've already gotten up more times than I can count. One more time won't defeat you. Lucy looked at everyone present. An old man seeking redemption, a French investor who had risked millions for principles, an Arab businessman who believed in justice, a Japanese executive who valued humility over arrogance, and she, a child who just wanted to protect her mother. All right, she finally said. I'll do it. That night, Lucy returned to the hospital. Her mother was awake, though weak. Where were you? Rhonda asked, her voice hoarse. Lucy sat beside her bed and told her everything. The viral video, the investors, the plan for the press conference, the approaching hearing. When she finished, Rhonda was crying silently. My brave girl, she whispered. When did you stop being my little girl and become a warrior? I never stopped being your little girl, Mum. I just learned to fight for what I love. I'm scared, Rhonda admitted. I'm scared of what might happen to you if you confront that man publicly. I'm scared too. Lucy took her mother's hand. But I'm more scared of doing nothing and losing you, of them separating us, of him winning, and if it doesn't work, then at least the world will know the truth. And that's something no one can take from us. Rhonda closed her eyes. Your grandmother used to say that words have power, that whoever masters words masters the world. My grandmother, I never told you much about her. She died when I was young, but she was a translator, just like you. She spoke 6 languages. She worked for embassies, for companies, for governments. And she always said her greatest gift wasn't languages, but the ability to make different people understand each other. Lucy felt tears forming in her eyes. Why didn't you ever tell me? Because when she died, I lost the connection to that world. I became what the world expected of me. Someone invisible, who cleans up what others mess up. But you, Lucy, you inherited her fire, and tomorrow you're going to do exactly what she always dreamed of. What? You're going to use words to change the world. The morning of the press conference dawned gray and cold. Lucy had barely slept. She had spent hours rehearsing what she would say, how she would say it, anticipating questions they might ask her, but nothing had prepared her for what she found when she arrived at the hall where the event would take place. Hundreds of journalists filled the space. Television cameras from all over the world pointed towards a small stage where a podium with microphones had been placed. Outside, Stella informed her, thousands of people had gathered, many with signs that read, Justice for Lucy and Ferguson must pay. The world is watching, Arthur told her as they walked towards the stage. Are you ready? No, Lucy admitted. But I'm going to do it anyway. The conference began with Arthur introducing himself, revealing his identity as the founder of Ferguson Holdings, and publicly denouncing his nephew's actions. Journalists exploded with questions, but Arthur remained calm, presenting document after document as evidence. Then came the investors. Eleanor spoke about financial irregularities. Amir revealed the international bribes. Yumi presented testimonies from former employees who had suffered the same fate as Rhonda. And finally, it was Lucy's turn. She walked to the podium with trembling legs, but a voice that refused to break. She looked at the cameras, imagined the millions of eyes watching her from all over the world, and began to speak. My name is Lucy Miller. I am 11 years old. My mother is a cleaner, and a month ago, a powerful man promised to give me $1 million if I could translate documents in 5 languages. She paused. The silence in the room was absolute. I translated 4 out of 5 perfectly. The 5th was Japanese, a language I don't know. But instead of lying, I admitted my limitation and asked to learn. Do you know what that man did? He laughed. He said it was a joke and then fired my mother for bringing me to work that day. The cameras captured every word, every expression, every tear. Lucy refused to let fall. But that wasn't enough for him. He made sure no company in the city would hire my mother. He made an anonymous report to have me removed from her custody. He bribed officials to ensure we lost everything. She held up a folder containing copies of the evidence. Here is the proof. Documents, recordings, testimonies, everything you need to see who Malcolm Ferguson really is. She looked directly into the main camera. Mr. Ferguson, if you are watching this, I want you to know something. I am not afraid of you. My mother taught me that dignity cannot be bought or sold, and my grandmother, whom I never knew, but whose fire runs through my veins, taught me that words can change the world. Her voice strengthened with each sentence. You tried to destroy us, but all you achieved was to awaken something that you won't be able to put back to sleep, because now the world knows who you really are, and the world is watching. The silence that followed Lucy's words lasted barely 3 seconds. Then chaos. Journalists rose from their seats, shouting questions. Camera flashes exploded like fireworks. The murmur of the crowd outside turned into a roar that penetrated the building's walls. But Lucy didn't hear any of that. Her eyes were fixed on a side screen showing the live broadcast. The viewer numbers climbed every second. 1 million, 2 million, 5 million. People from all over the world were witnessing this moment. Arthur approached the podium and took control. Now we will answer questions in an orderly manner. Please raise your hand. Hands shot up like a forest of desperate fingers. You, in the front row, Arthur pointed to a red-haired journalist with credentials from an international news network. Thank you. I'm Vanessa Clark from Global News. Mr. Monahan, you claim to be the founder of Ferguson Holdings and Malcolm Ferguson's uncle. Do you have proof of this kinship? Arthur nodded. I have birth certificates, informal adoption documents, bank records showing the transfers I made for his education, and family photographs spanning decades. All will be handed over to the relevant authorities. Another hand went up. A bald man with a British accent. Julian Price, Financial Times. To the investors present, are you willing to formally testify against Ferguson Holdings? And what implications would this have for your own businesses? Eleanor Dubois approached the microphone. We are willing to testify. As for the implications, we will lose money. A lot of money. But there are things more important than profit. Integrity is one of them. Amir al-Hamad added, in my culture, honor is worth more than gold. What we witnessed in that boardroom was the dishonor of a man who believes money protects him from everything. He was wrong. The questions continued for almost an hour about the documents, about the testimonies, about Ferguson's pattern of conduct. Each answer was another stone in the wall being built around the CEO's empire. Finally, a young journalist timidly raised her hand. This question is for Lucy. How did you learn so many languages at such a young age? Lucy looked at the journalist. It was the first question directed specifically at her since her initial statement. My mother worked all day, she began. When I was little, I spent a lot of time alone. The neighbors in our building came from different countries. Missus, Helga from Germany, taught me her language while she looked after me. Mr. Ahmed from Syria told me stories in Arabic while his wife cooked for us. Madame Colette, an elderly French woman who lived on the 3rd floor, read me poetry in her language. Every afternoon, she paused, remembering faces she hadn't seen in years. To them, I wasn't the cleaner's daughter. I was simply Lucy, a curious child who asked many questions. They taught me their languages because it was the only thing they had to give, and I learned because it was the only way I knew to thank them for their love. The silence that followed was different from the previous one. It wasn't tension or expectation. It was respect. And English? The journalist asked gently. The internet. Lucy smiled slightly. Videos, movies, songs. My mother couldn't afford private lessons, but knowledge is out there for anyone who wants to seek it. The conference ended past noon. As Lucy was escorted out of the building, her phone began to vibrate uncontrollably. Messages from unknown numbers, social media notifications, missed calls from international prefixes, but only one message caught her attention. It was from Dr. Sarah Davies at the hospital. Your mother woke up. She's asking for you. Come when you can. Lucy ran. In the hospital room, Rhonda was sitting in bed with her eyes fixed on a small television broadcasting the news. The press conference was the main topic on every channel. My girl, she whispered when Lucy entered. My little warrior. Lucy threw herself into her arms, crying for the first time in days. All the contained emotions, all the fear, all the pressure came out in sobs that shook her entire body. You did it, Rhonda stroked her hair. You faced a monster, and the whole world saw it. I was so scared, Mum, so scared of failing, of it being for nothing. But you didn't fail. You've never failed, Lucy. Everything you've done with your heart, and the heart never lies. Dr. Davies entered at that moment with a smile that lit up her face. I have good news. The infection is responding to treatment. If all goes well, your mother could leave the hospital in 4 or 5 days. Really? Lucy felt a wave of relief. Really? Though she'll need absolute rest for several weeks. No stress, no worries. Rhonda chuckled softly. That will be difficult with a daughter who just declared war on one of the most powerful men in the country. The doctor looked at them curiously. I saw the press conference. The whole hospital saw it. The nurses are talking about organizing a collection for you. We don't need charity, Rhonda began to say, but Lucy interrupted her. We need justice, doctor. And today we took the first step to get it. The next few hours were a whirlwind of calls and visits. Stella arrived first with news that changed everything. The Attorney General announced a formal investigation against Ferguson Holdings. They're reviewing all the documents we presented, and there's more. 3 former employees who had remained silent out of fear now want to testify. Then Arthur arrived, visibly exhausted, but with renewed energy. Malcolm has disappeared. He's not at his house. He's not at the office. He's not at any of his usual places. His lawyers say he's evaluating legal options, but the truth is, he's on the run. On the run? Lucy frowned. Where? He has properties in several countries, offshore bank accounts. He could be anywhere. And the hearing tomorrow? The Child Protection Services one? Arthur smiled, for the first time in days. Cancelled. The official Malcolm had bought, Robert Parker, was arrested this morning. He confessed everything in exchange for a reduced sentence. The anonymous report against your family has been officially dismissed. Lucy felt her knees give way. Rhonda held her as both cried with relief. It means they're not going to separate me from my mum? It means exactly that. No one is going to separate you, ever. But the calm was short-lived. That night, as Lucy dozed in a chair by her mother's bed, her phone rang. It was a blocked number. She hesitated before answering. Something in her instinct told her not to, but curiosity was stronger. Hello, Lucy Miller. The voice on the other end was distorted, unrecognizable. You've made a grave mistake. Who is this? Someone who knows things. Things that even Sir Arthur doesn't know about his dear nephew. Lucy felt a chill run down her spine. What things? Malcolm Ferguson isn't who everyone thinks. His cruelty has deeper roots than you imagine. Roots that extend to your own family. My family? I don't understand. Your grandmother, the translator. Do you think it was a coincidence that she died so young? Do you think it was a coincidence that your mother ended up working for Ferguson's company? Lucy's heart was pounding so hard she could hear it in her ears. What are you saying? I'm saying there's a story no one has told you. A story that connects your family to the Fergusons for decades. And if you want to know the whole truth, you need to look in the place where it all began. What place? Sir Arthur Monaghan's personal archives. Ask him about the year he met your grandmother. Ask him what happened at the French embassy. Ask him why your mother never knew who her father was. The line went dead. Lucy was frozen. The phone still pressed to her ear. The mysterious voice's words bounced in her mind like echoes in a dark cavern. Her grandmother, the French embassy, her mother's father. What did it all mean? She looked at Rhonda, who was sleeping deeply thanks to the medication. Her mother had never spoken about her father. Lucy had always assumed it was a painful subject, something she shouldn't ask about. But now the questions multiplied like viruses in her mind. Who was her mother's father? What connection did her grandmother have to the Fergusons? And why would someone want her to know all this right now? The next morning, Lucy confronted Arthur. She found him in his office reviewing legal documents related to the investigation against his nephew. When she entered, she immediately noticed something had changed in his expression. Last night I received a call, she said without preamble. Someone told me to ask you about my grandmother, about the French embassy, about my mother's father. Color drained from Arthur's face. Who called you? I don't know. The voice was distorted. But it knew things that made me realize there's a story no one has told me. Arthur sank into his chair as if he had suddenly doubled in weight. I hoped you would never have to know this, he murmured. I hoped I could help you without the truth coming out. What truth? The old man closed his eyes for a long moment. When he opened them, there were tears in them. Your grandmother, Catherine Miller, was the most extraordinary woman I ever knew. She worked as a translator at the French embassy when I met her. She had the same light in her eyes as you. The same passion for languages, the same fire within her. He paused, as if each word cost him physical effort. We fell in love. It was a forbidden love. Impossible. I was married, I had responsibilities, a reputation to maintain, but Catherine was like a magnet. I couldn't pull myself away from her even though I knew I should. Lucy felt the ground move beneath her feet. Are you saying that you and my grandmother had a relationship? It lasted almost 2 years, and from that relationship, a child was born. A child. Catherine raised alone because I was too cowardly to acknowledge her publicly. My mother, Lucy whispered. My mother is your daughter. Arthur nodded, unable to look her in the eyes. Rhonda is my daughter, which means you, Lucy, are my granddaughter. Lucy's world crumbled and rebuilt in an instant. Everything she thought she knew about her family, about her history, about herself, was a lie. My mother knows? No. Catherine never told her. She made me promise to keep it a secret until my death. But now, Ferguson is his nephew. Lucy connected the dots with growing horror. Which means Ferguson is my mother's cousin. Which means the man who tried to destroy us is my family. Yes. Arthur finally looked at her. Malcolm knows nothing of this. No one knew, except me and your grandmother. But someone else discovered the truth. Someone who wants to use it. Use it for what? I don't know. But we have to find out before it's too late. Lucy sank into a chair, her mind processing information that changed everything. She was Sir Arthur Monaghan's granddaughter, Malcolm Ferguson's cousin, heir to a legacy she never knew existed. And someone, somewhere, knew all these secrets and was using them as pieces in a game she was just beginning to understand. What do we do now? She asked, her voice trembling. Now, Arthur rose with renewed determination. We find out who is behind this and discover what they really want. But before they could take the first step, Arthur's phone rang. It was Stella, and her voice sounded terrified. Sir Arthur, turn on the news now! Arthur switched on the TV. The image that appeared made both of them hold their breath. Malcolm Ferguson was on screen, standing in front of a microphone with a chilling smile, and the words he uttered changed everything. I have information that will destroy Sir Arthur Monaghan and reveal that the little heroine Lucy Miller is part of a family conspiracy to steal my company, and I have the evidence to prove it. Malcolm Ferguson's words echoed on the screen like a death sentence. Lucy felt the air leave her lungs. Arthur visibly paled, his hands trembling as he watched his nephew on the screen. In the next 24 hours, Ferguson continued with that chilling smile. I will reveal documents proving that Sir Arthur Monaghan has been planning for decades to regain control of my company, and his secret weapon is a child who happens to be his illegitimate granddaughter. The word hit Lucy like a punch. Illegitimate. As if her existence were a mistake, as if her life were a stain that had to be erased. This supposed David versus Goliath story, Ferguson spat the words, is actually a family conspiracy to destroy me, and I have someone who can confirm everything. The camera moved, revealing a person sitting next to Ferguson, Simon Reed, the lawyer who had been his right-hand man, the man who had executed every cruel order, every ruthless revenge. Now he was there with a nervous but determined expression. Mr. Reed, Ferguson addressed him. Tell the world what you know. Simon cleared his throat. For years I worked alongside Sir Arthur before he retired. I witnessed private conversations where he expressed his intention to regain the company when the time was right. He mentioned a secret daughter he would one day use as a legitimate heir. Lucy looked at Arthur in horror. Is that true? No, Arthur denied vehemently. Simon is lying. He never worked directly with me. He was hired by Malcolm years after my retirement. Then why is he saying those things? Because Malcolm has him trapped. Simon knows too much about my nephew's real crimes. If he doesn't cooperate, he'll go to prison along with him. On the screen, Ferguson continued his performance. Tomorrow at 10 a.m., in the same place where this child put on her media circus, I will present all the evidence. The world will see who the Monaghans and the Millers really are. A family of liars and manipulators. The broadcast ended. The silence in Arthur's office was deafening. We have to do something! Lucy broke the silence. We can't let him lie about us. What he says has no legal basis. Arthur tried to remain calm, but his voice trembled. There are no documents to prove a conspiracy because no conspiracy exists. But the public damage is already done. Stella intervened. The people who supported you now have doubts. Social media is exploding with theories. Arthur's phone rang. It was Eleanor Dubois. Arthur, I just saw the broadcast. We need to talk now. Half an hour later, the investors were gathered again in the office. Their expressions mixed concern and determination. Ferguson's accusation is ridiculous. Amir Al-Hamad spoke first. Anyone who saw the original video knows that child wasn't acting. Her talent is genuine. But Ferguson has something, Eleanor pointed out pragmatically. He wouldn't make such a statement without having some kind of evidence, even if fabricated. Fabricated? Lucy asked. Fake documents, Yumi Sato explained. In the corporate world, it's more common than you imagine. Papers that look legitimate are created, but they're completely invented. And how do we prove they're fake? That's the problem, Eleanor sighed. Proving something is false is much harder than proving something is true. Lucy's phone vibrated. A message from a blocked number. If you want the truth about Simon Reed, look for him in the Bar Association's closed case archive. Case number 2847. Not everything is as it seems. Lucy showed the message to the others. It's the same person who called me last night, she said. The one who knows about my grandmother and my family. Someone is helping us from the shadows? Arthur frowned. But who? It doesn't matter who it is right now. Stella was already at her computer. What matters is if the information is real. She typed quickly, accessing databases Lucy didn't know existed. Here it is. Stella turned the screen. Case 2847 of the Bar Association. Simon Reed was investigated years ago for document forgery in a civil case. The investigation was closed due to lack of evidence, but the file mentions something interesting. What? Everyone asked in unison. The original complainant was threatened and withdrew the charges. Guess who legally represented the accused party? Ferguson Holdings. Malcolm, Arthur murmured. Exactly. Simon has been forging documents for Ferguson for years, and now he's doing the same against us. Night fell over the city. As the group worked frantically, Lucy knew she had to return to the hospital to her mother. But she also knew that if they didn't stop Ferguson now, everything they had achieved would crumble. I need to go see my mom, she finally said. She doesn't know anything about what's happening. Go, Arthur nodded. We'll keep working. Tomorrow we'll need all our strength. Sir Arthur. Lucy stopped at the door. My mother doesn't know that you are her father. When are you going to tell her? The old man lowered his gaze. When all this is over. I don't want her to have any more worries now. She deserves to know the truth. I know. And I will tell her. I promise you. At the hospital, Rhonda was awake, watching the news on the small television. I saw Ferguson's conference, she said when Lucy entered. That man has no limits. Mom, there's something I need to tell you. Lucy sat beside her mother and told her everything. About Arthur, about Catherine, about the secret that had remained hidden for decades. With each word, Rhonda's face went through different emotions. Surprise, disbelief, pain, confusion. Arthur Monaghan is my father? Her voice was barely a whisper. Yes, Mum. You are his daughter, and I am his granddaughter. And Ferguson is your cousin. And mine too. Rhonda closed her eyes. Tears began to fall silently down her cheeks. My mother never told me anything, she murmured. Whenever I asked about my father, she changed the subject. She said some secrets were better left unknown. Are you angry? Rhonda opened her eyes and looked at her daughter. I don't know what I feel. All my life I thought I was nobody's daughter, that my father just didn't want me. And now I discover he's one of the richest men in the country, who was watching us for years without saying anything. He was scared, Mum. Scared of ruining Grandma's memory. Scared of complicating your life. And that justifies it? Decades of silence while we struggled to survive? Lucy had no answer. She understood her mother's rage. She also understood Arthur's reasons, but understanding didn't mean accepting. I want to see him, Rhonda suddenly said. Now, before dawn, before that monster Ferguson tries to destroy what little we have left. Arthur arrived at the hospital an hour later. Lucy waited outside the room, giving them privacy. Through the closed door, she could hear voices. First calm, then more intense, then sobs. The conversation lasted almost 2 hours. When Arthur finally came out, his eyes were red from crying. He seemed to have aged 10 years in one night. How is she? Lucy asked. Angry, hurt, confused. Arthur leaned against the wall. She has every right to feel that way. I stole her chance to know her father. I stole a life that could have been different. Did she forgive you? I don't know, he said. She said she needs time, but she also said something that gave me hope. What? She said that despite everything, she's proud of you, of the woman you've become. And if I had anything to do with that, even indirectly, then maybe there's some good amidst so much wrong. Lucy felt tears forming in her eyes. She entered the room and found her mother looking out the window. Mum. Rhonda turned. Her face showed the traces of tears. But there was something else, something Lucy recognized, because she had seen it in the mirror many times. Determination. "We're going to put an end to this," Rhonda said with a firm voice. "That man, Ferguson, is my cousin, my own blood, and he has dedicated his life to destroying innocent people, including us." "Mum, you're sick. You need to rest." "I'll rest when this is over. Right now, my place is by your side. The doctors won't let you leave." "Then we'll leave without them seeing us." Rhonda smiled for the first time in days. "Do you think only you inherited your grandmother's fire?" Dawn found an unlikely group gathered in Arthur's office. Rhonda, pale but determined, sitting in an armchair with a blanket over her shoulders. Lucy beside her, holding her hand. Arthur, facing them with an expression of astonishment at seeing the daughter he never knew fighting alongside him. The investors occupied the rest of the room, each contributing resources and contacts. And in the center of the table, a screen showed the discovery that would change everything. "We found the origin of the mysterious call," Stella announced. "You won't believe who it is." The image on the screen showed a face everyone recognized. It was a middle-aged woman with strangely familiar features. "Her name is Chloe Monaghan," Stella explained. "She's Malcolm Ferguson's younger sister, and apparently she's been collecting evidence against her own brother for years." "Ferguson has a sister?" Lucy couldn't believe it. "A sister he practically erased from existence," Arthur murmured, recognizing the face. "Chloe. Last time I saw her, she was just a teenager. Malcolm sent her away when he took control of the company. He said it was for her own good. But the truth is, she was always my parents' favorite. He couldn't stand it. And now she's helping us?" "Apparently, yes." "Stella, can you contact her?" "I already have. She's on her way." Chloe Monaghan arrived 30 minutes before Ferguson's press conference. When she entered the office, Lucy immediately noticed the family resemblance. The same eyes as Arthur, the same upright posture. But where Ferguson radiated cruelty, Chloe emanated a deep sadness mixed with resolution. "Uncle Arthur," was the first thing she said. "It's been a long time. Too long." Arthur approached and hugged her. "Why didn't you ever contact me?" "Because Malcolm threatened me," she said. "He said if I ever tried to get close to the family, he would destroy everything I loved." Chloe pulled away from the hug. "But I have nothing left to lose. And when I saw what he did to this child, I knew it was time to act." She looked at Lucy with a mix of admiration and pain. "You are brave, braver than any of us. You stood up to my brother when everyone else looked away. What do you have for us?" Lucy was direct. "Ferguson's conference starts in less than an hour." Chloe pulled a hard drive from her bag. 23 years of evidence, recordings, documents, testimonies, everything you need to prove that the documents my brother will present today are fake. And much more. "How did you get all this?" "Because Malcolm never considered me a threat. I was just his weak sister, the one who had been banished and forgotten. It never occurred to him that I was watching, waiting, collecting every mistake he made." Chloe connected the drive to the computer. Folders appeared on the screen. "Here's proof that Simon Reed's documents were created just 3 days ago. The digital metadata doesn't lie." And here, she opened another folder. "Are the original recordings of the meetings where Malcolm ordered every act of revenge against his enemies, including the campaign against Rhonda Miller." Rhonda leaned forward, her eyes fixed on the screen. "You have recordings of him ordering my destruction?" "I have recordings of everything. My brother never learned to be careful because he never believed anyone would dare to challenge him." Chloe looked at everyone present. "Malcolm took away my family, my inheritance, my life. Today I am finally going to reclaim some of what I lost." "What?" Lucy asked. "My dignity, and the justice that so many deserve." The conference room was packed. Journalists from all over the world occupied every available seat. Television cameras broadcast live to over 100 countries. Outside, thousands of people had gathered, many with signs that read, "Justice for Lucy," and "The world is watching." Malcolm Ferguson entered first, flanked by Simon Reed and an army of lawyers. His arrogant smile radiated the confidence of someone who believes they have won before the battle even begins. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began from the podium, "today I will reveal the truth about the most elaborate conspiracy this city has witnessed." He held up a thick folder. "Here I have documents that prove Sir Arthur Monaghan planned for decades to regain my company using a child as a media weapon. A child who happens to be his illegitimate granddaughter, the product of a secret relationship with an employee." Murmurs filled the room. "Simon Reed, my legal advisor, was a witness to these conspiracies and is prepared to testify under oath." Simon approached the microphone, but before he could speak, the doors of the hall burst open. Lucy entered first. Behind her, Rhonda walked with firm steps despite her weakness. Arthur followed her, along with the international investors, and closing the group, a woman who made Ferguson's face lose all color. "Chloe! Chloe Monaghan!" Ferguson's voice trembled for the first time. "What are you doing here?" "I came to tell the truth, brother. The truth you've tried to bury for 23 years. Chloe walked to the podium with the same authority with which her brother had occupied it moments before. "My name is Chloe Monaghan. I am Malcolm Ferguson's younger sister, and for over 2 decades I have documented every crime, every lie, every life my brother has destroyed." She connected the hard drive to the main screen in the hall. "These documents my brother just showed were created 3 days ago. Digital metadata confirms it. They are fake. Fabricated by Simon Reed, who has a documented history of forgery." The screen showed the evidence. Creation dates, digital records, irrefutable proof. "But that's not all," Chloe continued. "Here are the real recordings. The conversations where Malcolm ordered the destruction of Rhonda Miller simply because her daughter humiliated him by demonstrating a talent he could never buy." Ferguson's voice filled the room, clear and unmistakable. "I want that woman to never work anywhere in this city again, and I want the child to end up in the system, so they learn what it means to challenge me." Journalists exploded with questions. Camera flashes lit up the room like lightning. Ferguson recoiled, his face transforming from arrogance to panic. "That's manipulated," he screamed. "It's a conspiracy. The only conspiracy here is yours." Arthur stepped forward. "For years I watched you destroy lives while I remained silent. That silence ends today." He looked at Rhonda, who nodded slightly. "Rhonda Miller is my daughter. Lucy Miller is my granddaughter. And yes, for decades, I kept that secret out of cowardice, but I never ever conspired to regain a company. All I ever wanted was to protect my family from a monster I helped create myself." Simon Reed, seeing the ship sinking, made a desperate decision. "I can explain everything." He approached the microphone. "Ferguson forced me to lie. He threatened to destroy me if I didn't cooperate. I have evidence of his other crimes, crimes no one knows about yet." "Shut up." Ferguson lunged at his former ally, but security guards stopped him. At that moment, federal agents entered the hall. Malcolm Ferguson, the lead agent, spoke in a clear voice. "You are under arrest for corporate fraud, bribing public officials, document forgery, and conspiracy. You have the right to remain silent." As he was handcuffed, Ferguson looked at Lucy with pure hatred. "This isn't over," he hissed. "I have resources. I have connections. I'll be back." Lucy looked at him without fear. "No, Mr. Ferguson, you won't be back. Because now the world knows who you really are, and the world doesn't forget." The following months were a period of rebuilding. Ferguson Holdings was thoroughly investigated. Decades of corruption, bribes, and destruction of lives were uncovered. Malcolm was sentenced to 25 years in prison. Simon Reed, in exchange for his cooperation, received a reduced sentence but lost his law license forever. Ferguson's confiscated assets were used to compensate all victims of his abuses. Dozens of families who had been destroyed, like Lucy's, finally received justice. And the $1 million Ferguson had promised as a cruel joke was ordered by the court as official compensation for Lucy Miller. "I don't want his money," Lucy had said when she was informed. "Then use it for something good," Arthur suggested, and she did. The Catherine Miller Foundation opened its doors 6 months after the trial. Named in honor of her grandmother, the foundation was dedicated to identifying and supporting talented young people without resources, children with extraordinary abilities but no opportunities, just as Lucy had been. Eleanor Dubois, Amir Al-Hamad, and Yumi Sato became principal sponsors. Chloe Monaghan donated her share of the family inheritance to fund educational scholarships, and Arthur, finally reconciled with his daughter Rhonda, dedicated his last years to working alongside his granddaughter. Rhonda fully recovered from her illness. The best doctors, paid with funds they could finally afford, treated her until her health was stronger than ever. She now worked as a foundation coordinator, helping other mothers who faced the same struggles she had survived. "Mom," Lucy asked her one afternoon as they reviewed scholarship applications, "have you forgiven Sir Arthur?" Rhonda smiled softly. "Forgiveness isn't a moment, darling. It's a process. But every day I see him trying to make amends for his mistakes. Every day I see him loving you as the grandfather he always should have been. That process moves a little further. And someday you'll call him Dad? Perhaps when I'm ready. When he's ready. When both of us have healed enough." On Lucy's birthday, a letter arrived from prison. It was from Malcolm Ferguson. "I don't expect your forgiveness," he wrote in a trembling hand. "I don't deserve it, But I want you to know that every day in this place I think of the moment you laughed at me without laughing, when you showed that true power is not in money or titles, but in dignity. A dignity that I lost a long time ago, if I ever had it. Your grandmother Catherine was extraordinary. Now I understand why my uncle loved her so much, and I understand why you are who you are. I hope that someday, when you are an adult, you can look back and see that even monsters can learn, even if it's too late. Lucy read the letter 3 times before putting it away. She didn't reply. It wasn't necessary. Some wounds need time, some answers don't exist, and some people simply must live with the consequences of their decisions. Years later, Lucy Miller became the youngest translator to work for the United Nations. Her story was told in documentaries, books, and films, but she always insisted that her story wasn't the important one. "It's my mother's story," she would say in every interview, "who worked her whole life to give me opportunities. It's my grandmother Catherine's story, who bequeathed me a love for languages without ever knowing me. It's the story of all the invisible people who have extraordinary talents, but never get the chance to show them." In her office, on her desk, she kept a framed photo. It was from that day, in the Ferguson Holdings boardroom, a girl with a school backpack, surrounded by executives who mocked her. Below the photo, a plaque with words her mother had said that night in the hospital. Words can change the world, and how they had. Because a girl had shown that talent needs no certificates, that dignity is priceless, and that sometimes the biggest giants can be brought down by the smallest voices. It just takes the courage to speak, and someone willing to listen.